The vastness of space is often silent, an endless dark ocean punctuated by distant stars and drifting vessels. Yet, this quiet was shattered when the Galactic Council's deep space monitoring stations detected a faint, irregular signal emanating from the outer edges of Velthar's system, a desperate SOS call in an ancient, nearly forgotten galactic dialect. The transmission was fragmented, distorted by interference, but its urgent plea was unmistakable. An alien civilization under siege, facing an unknown enemy that threatened total annihilation. The Velthari, a species previously considered a minor player in galactic politics, had sent the call. Their civilization was known for advanced science but a reluctance to engage in conflict, preferring diplomacy and trade. The distress signal ignited alarm across the Galactic Council, a powerful assembly of various alien races tasked with maintaining order and peace. Yet despite the clarity of the plea for help, the Council hesitated. History was littered with failed interventions, entanglements that escalated into full-scale wars, costing countless lives. Many Council members feared that responding would mean inviting a war that might consume even their own worlds. Meanwhile, on Earth, the signal triggered an entirely different reaction. Humanity's scientific community scrambled to decode and analyze the transmission, fascinated by its origin and the nature of the threat. Earth's military intelligence saw opportunity. The humans had long been underestimated by the wider galaxy, dismissed as a young and primitive species with nothing but raw tenacity to offer. But those who knew Earth's harshest death world environments, the hostile planets where only the toughest survived, believed this was the moment to prove humanity's true strength. Without waiting for the slow and cautious deliberations of the Galactic Council, a covert human strike team was assembled under the highest secrecy. The team was hand-picked from elite soldiers, survival experts, and tactical innovators, all trained on Earth's deadliest planets, where survival wasn't guaranteed, and adaptability was a matter of life or death. These humans had a reputation for pushing beyond limits, thriving where others would perish. The team's mission was clear but perilous: respond to the Velthari distress call, investigate the situation, and if possible, neutralize the threat. Intelligence briefings revealed little about the enemy, only that they were unlike any known galactic species, and that after weeks of hyperspace travel, the human strike team finally emerged near Velthar's star system. The first sight was grim: scattered debris of shattered colonies, smoldering wreckage, and strange biosignatures flickering erratically on their sensors. The once thriving Velthari colony was now a ruin, a silent testament to the devastating assault that had reduced it to ashes. The atmosphere was thick with tension and the weight of unknown dangers lurking in the shadows. As the team descended to the planet's surface, their advanced scanners detected faint, scattered pockets of Velthari survivors. These aliens, slender and delicate in appearance, moved cautiously through the wreckage. Their eyes, wide with fear and exhaustion, reflected a hopelessness rarely seen by the human soldiers who had faced brutal death world environments. Initial contact was fragile. Velthari were distrustful, haunted by recent horrors, unsure whether the humans were saviors or yet another threat. The humans' first priority was to secure a perimeter around the survivors and assess the enemy's nature. Early reconnaissance revealed alien battlefields marked by strange bioorganic technology, living machines fused with the environment, blending plant-like structures with pulsating organic armor. These attackers moved with eerie coordination, employing combat strategies that defied all known galactic conventions. The humans quickly realized they faced an enemy unlike anything documented in the Galactic Council's archives. Velthari scientists and historians, when questioned, described their attackers as relentless hunters from the dark regions beyond known space. These creatures were not just invaders, they were engineered predators, designed to systematically hunt and eliminate any species that posed a future threat. The survivors spoke of entire colonies disappearing overnight, swallowed by waves of these bioweapons with terrifying speed and efficiency. The human team's military leaders convened to strategize. Standard tactics would not suffice. The enemy's adaptability and the unknown properties of their biotechnology required new approaches. While the Velthari leaned on their knowledge of advanced science, it was clear their pacifist culture left them ill-prepared for such brutal warfare. Meanwhile, the humans began to probe the planet's harsh terrain, noting how even Velthar's deadly environments paled in comparison to Earth's infamous death worlds. The soldiers' experience with extreme ecosystems and survival against impossible odds gave them a confidence the Velthari lacked. The humans quickly set up forward operating bases, improvising defensive positions using a blend of their own technology and remnants of Velthari infrastructure. However, the arrival was far from peaceful. The enemy's biomachines launched probing attacks, testing the humans' defenses with terrifying speed. Skirmishes erupted, showcasing the brutal efficiency of the attackers' alien biology. The humans' unconventional tactics, combining guerrilla warfare, ambushes, and environmental traps, began to offset the enemy's numerical and technological advantages. Tensions between the humans and Velthari slowly thawed as the survivors observed the relentless determination of their new allies. The Velthari had never encountered a species willing to engage with such ferocity and adaptability. The humans did not just fight for survival, they fought with the desperate tenacity born of countless generations surviving on hostile worlds, where death was constant and brutal. Part 2 closes with a sense of uneasy alliance forged in the fires of war. The Velthari begin to place hope in humanity, while the humans prepare for a much deeper conflict ahead, one that will test not just their combat skills, but the very limits of their endurance and unity. The mystery of the enemy deepens, and the stage is set for humanity's hidden strengths to emerge as the battle for Velthar intensifies. We're on the verge of extinction. The human leaders understood that failure could mean the loss of allies, and potentially Earth's first real test in galactic warfare. Yet hesitation was a luxury they could not afford. As the strike team prepared to launch, tension ran high. The crew knew they faced unknown horrors far beyond the safety of home. They trained relentlessly, running simulations and studying every shred of intel. But for all their preparation, no one could predict what awaited them on Velthar. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, a heated debate raged. Some argued for sending humanitarian aid under the Council's banner, hoping to avoid direct conflict. Others warned that the unknown enemy might be a warning sign of a greater galactic menace. Amid the uncertainty, Earth's unilateral action was viewed with suspicion, but also a grudging respect. The humans had chosen to act where others hesitated, driven by a fierce determination and an unyielding will to survive and protect. The story's opening sets a gripping stage, a fragile alliance on the brink of collapse, an ancient signal that rekindles old fears, and humanity's decision to step into the void. It promises a journey from uncertainty into the heart of conflict, revealing a species forged in the harshest conditions, standing ready to face the galaxy's deadliest challenge. As the battle on Velthar escalated, it quickly became apparent that the humans were not just another allied species fighting alongside the Velthari. They were something different. Their approach to warfare, honed by millennia of surviving some of the galaxy's most brutal death worlds, gave them an edge no one anticipated. The alien attackers proved ruthless and terrifying, with their bioorganic weaponry and predatory combat tactics. They moved swiftly, striking with precision and then vanishing into the dense hostile terrain. Conventional galactic military forces would have been overwhelmed or immobilized by fear, but the humans adapted rapidly, turning the battlefield itself into a weapon. Their guerrilla warfare tactics were unlike anything the Velthari had seen before. Instead of relying on heavy firepower or sheer numbers, the humans used the environment to their advantage. They improvised traps from local flora and fauna, using their deep knowledge of survival in hostile conditions to exploit the alien attackers' weaknesses. Camouflage and ambush became second nature. Where others saw death and decay, humans saw opportunity. One of the most confounding things for their Velthari allies was the humans' fearless approach to danger. Where other species might hesitate or retreat, humans pressed forward, embracing risk with a resolve born from generations of living on death worlds. This relentless drive unsettled both their enemies and allies. The Velthari began to whisper that humans didn't just survive, they thrived where others fell. Interspersed with the unfolding battle were flashbacks revealing humanity's past. How Earth's harshest environments, from toxic wastelands to extreme climates, forged a species that was not just physically tough, but incredibly adaptable and inventive. Humans had learned to improvise weapons from scrap, to move silently through impossible terrain, and to think several steps ahead in unpredictable situations. This legacy was now being put to the ultimate test on Velthar. As the humans began to gain ground, their tactics evolved. They mixed old-school guerrilla strikes with advanced technology, like drones modified to mimic local wildlife and nanoswarms that disrupted the bioorganic enemy's cohesion. Psychological warfare was another key element. Humans used loud, sudden attacks followed by rapid disappearances, sowing confusion and fear among the alien attackers. For the first time, the enemy showed signs of hesitation. Velthari leaders watched in amazement as the humans demonstrated a combination of raw ferocity and calculated precision. It was clear that the human way of war was not just about brute strength, but a complex blend of survival instinct, cunning, and unbreakable will. Their ability to endure, adapt, and innovate on the fly turned the tide in small but significant ways. Yet even as humans gained small victories, they understood this was only the beginning. The enemy was relentless and would soon bring forth more terrifying bioweapons, forcing humans to push their limits further. Still, the human team's success forged a new bond with the Velthari, one built on respect, hope, and the recognition that humanity might be the galaxy's last line of defense against this deadly foe. Part 3 closes on a tense but hopeful note. The Velthari's despair begins to lift as the humans' hidden edge comes to light. Their fierce adaptability and unconventional warfare tactics spark a glimmer of hope in a war that had seemed hopeless. Humanity's reputation as mere novices in galactic combat is shattered. They are proving to be a force that could change the fate of the galaxy. The battlefield on Velthar was shifting. With each passing day, humanity's presence altered the rhythm of war. The alien enemy, once an unstoppable tide of bioengineered hunters, was no longer advancing unchallenged. Human tactics had disrupted their momentum, but Earth's commanders knew these skirmishes were only a taste of the larger threat to come. That's when the order was given: activate the Death World Protocol. From orbit, drop pods screamed through Velthar's atmosphere. Inside them were Earth's most elite warriors, not just trained soldiers but survivors of Earth's worst places. Known unofficially as Deathworlders, these were individuals hand-picked from planets so lethal that even the Galactic Council classified them as uninhabitable. These men and women had survived toxic storms, predatory megafauna, and terrain so unforgiving that even the hardiest alien species had failed to establish footholds. They weren't just specialists, they were weapons. Upon deployment, the Deathworlders brought a terrifying new level of warfare to Velthar. Clad in adaptive combat armor made from meta-alloys and smart weaves grown on Class 9 Deathworld fungi, they could blend into the terrain, shrug off minor wounds, and interface directly with local biosignatures. Armed with modifiable weapons capable of adjusting firepower mid-combat, they struck with surgical precision and terrifying brutality. The Velthari, still recovering from their trauma, watched in awe as these warriors moved like phantoms across the battlefield. The Deathworlders didn't just fight, they hunted. They used the alien environment as a weapon, drawing the enemy into ravines, volcanic tunnels, and decaying cities where the terrain did the killing for them. The enemy, which had never known fear, began to experience something like hesitation. These elite humans communicated almost wordlessly, operating with a synergy that unnerved even their own allies. They shared battle data in real time, used non-verbal command sequences, and often responded to developing threats faster than artificial intelligences could process. For the Velthari, it was a revelation. These weren't just soldiers. These were apex predators in humanoid form. In response to the human counteroffensive, the alien invaders escalated. They began deploying Harbinger strains, massive semi-sentient warbeasts grown from planetary biomass, capable of leveling entire regions. These new threats dwarfed anything the humans had encountered so far. But the Deathworlders did not retreat. Instead, they adapted once again, using orbital strike mapping, terrain disruptive explosives, and even directing enemy Harbinger units into one another's paths through calculated chaos. One Deathworlder team, known only by their call sign Hollow Fang, lured a war beast into a canyon and collapsed the cliffs with seismic charges, burying the creature beneath hundreds of tons of rock. As word of these feats spread, the Velthari's morale soared. For the first time, the once fragile species began to believe that survival was possible. Humanity wasn't just fighting for them, they were winning. The Council, still paralyzed by indecision, began covertly monitoring Earth's response, stunned by the sheer lethality of their intervention. But humanity knew better than to get comfortable. Each wave of enemy evolution was worse than the last. Still, something critical had changed. The enemy now saw humans as a serious threat, and in doing so, they had awakened something ancient and terrifying in humanity's soul, the part that refuses to die, that adapts in darkness, and that turns despair into fire. Part 4 ends with the battlefield transformed. The Deathworlders have arrived, and the rules of engagement have changed. Humanity is no longer reacting to war. They are defining it. With the Deathworlders now deployed across Velthar, the momentum of war shifted dramatically. Where once the alien invaders moved like an unstoppable storm, now they met resistance. Unyielding, intelligent, and increasingly lethal. The predators had become the prey. The enemy's tactics evolved swiftly. Their commanders, if they could be called that, began deploying swarm variants, clusters of smaller, faster bioconstructs meant to outflank and overwhelm. They learned to mimic environmental cues, to mask their biosignatures from human scanners. Entire regions of Velthar fell silent as new bioweapons carved through unguarded territory. The war was far from over, but the Deathworlders were already adapting. Their commanders launched a campaign of asymmetrical saturation warfare, hitting enemy formations with unpredictable, highly mobile raids, while engineering terrain denial, zones through nanite-infused wildfires, electromagnetic disruption storms, and even planet-based biological contagions that specifically disrupted the invaders' metabolic processes. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their firepower, it was their creativity under pressure. One squad embedded themselves deep in alien-controlled jungle, developing a week-long offensive dubbed Operation Molten Thorn. They harvested fungal spores from Velthar's toxic marshes and engineered them into corrosive traps. When triggered, the spores ate through bioarmor, leaving the enemy exposed to precision sniping and coordinated plasma strikes. The operation wiped out 3 major nests and marked the first time a human-only unit successfully cleared a region without orbital support. Meanwhile, Earth's engineers and exobiologists worked alongside Velthari scientists to reverse engineer fragments of the enemy's own biotech. The result was the creation of echo drives, hybrid drones that could not only camouflage like the enemy, but also infiltrate their swarm networks. These drones provided critical intelligence, revealing the existence of brood pylons, giant, root-like structures the enemy used as anchor points for spawning and reinforcement. Destroying a brood pylon, however, wasn't simple. They were heavily protected by a lattice of semi-sentient guardians, each more vicious than the last. But humans had a plan. Coordinating with orbital units, a combined strike force of Deathworlders and Velthari commandos launched simultaneous assaults across 5 pylon sites. The attacks were surgical. While Deathworlders engaged the Guardians with terrifying efficiency, Velthari tech experts used human-supplied quantum disruptors to destabilize the bio-anchors from within. 3 pylons were destroyed outright. 1 collapsed under its own failed defense reaction. The 5th, heavily defended, was compromised but held. Even so, the loss was catastrophic to the invaders. Their spawning slowed. Their coordination began to falter. For the first time since the conflict began, Velthar saw sunlight pierce the smoke-filled skies. The human-led victories ignited a spark across other war-torn systems. Distress calls had reached other worlds, and now they too requested Earth's warriors. Rumors spread of humans who hunted monsters in shadows, of Deathworlders who smiled in the face of oblivion, and of Earth, the uninvited savior species that fought like gods from a forgotten age. But even as victory loomed, the humans remained alert. They knew what others didn't. Predators always retreat before the final strike. The enemy was not beaten. It was preparing something worse. Still, morale surged. The Velthari, once shattered and spiritless, now stood beside their human allies, with renewed purpose. Unity, forged in blood and desperation, had become a weapon in itself. Part 5 ends with a quiet moment. Soldiers resting among the ruins, the first laughter heard in weeks. But above them, deep in orbit, a massive distortion was forming in space-time. The final battle was coming. The sky over Velthar split open. What began as a flicker of space-time distortion rapidly bloomed into a churning rift, pulsing with violet light and unfathomable gravitational pressure. From it emerged the Hive Apex, the central intelligence behind the bioengineered alien horde. Towering organic dreadnoughts poured forth, trailing swarms like shadows of death, each teeming with thousands of life forms built for a single purpose: annihilation. This was not a final attack. It was extinction. Velthari defenses, even bolstered by human ingenuity, began to buckle. Orbital stations were torn apart by living torpedoes. Planetary shields flickered and failed. Panic swelled as the Hive's final wave descended, but amidst the chaos humanity stood unmoved. They had expected this. In fact, they had planned for it. The Deathworld Protocol, Phase Omega, was activated. Earth's generals had known that if the Hive Apex revealed itself, it would be the moment to strike, not defensively but offensively, with every last asset they had kept in reserve. Deep space kinetic lances were launched, streaking through the void at relativistic speeds. Orbital drop pods rained down, not just with elite soldiers but with Titan units, human-piloted exosuits the size of small buildings, equipped with planet-cracking armaments and adaptive combat intelligence. The Deathworlders led the charge into the heart of the oncoming storm. Each unit knew this could be their last mission, but no one hesitated. They had long accepted the price of survival, and they would make the enemy pay tenfold. In the skies above, Earth's experimental AI-controlled stealth fleet initiated a flanking maneuver. Using warping drones to scatter enemy sensors, the fleet pierced the Hive's rear flank and deployed neurosingularity charges, weapons designed to scramble the Hive's hive-mind cohesion. The result was chaos. The swarms lost coordination, turning feral and erratic. On the ground, the human Velthari coalition stormed the primary brood nexus, a mountainous hive structure that housed the Hive Apex's neural relay core. Fighting. Through layers of grotesque bioflesh, hallucination-inducing pheromones, and psychic interference, the final team, led by Captain Kale Virek, a Deathworlder born on Europa's sulfuric ice fields, reached the core. Virek and his team planted a graviton imploder, but the Hive Apex manifested, emerging from a chrysalis of flesh and tendrils, towering, intelligent, ancient. It spoke directly into their minds, promising power, immortality, mercy. It showed them galaxies burning, offered to spare Earth if they stood down. They didn't hesitate. The final moments were brutal. Virek stayed behind to ensure detonation, fighting the Apex with his bare hands as the imploder built to critical mass. His last words, transmitted through a cracked comm unit, were simple: "Let them know we never broke." The core detonated. The Hive died with a scream that echoed across subspace. All connected bioforces collapsed instantly. Across the galaxy, every Hive-linked monstrosity went limp, their minds severed from the Apex. Velthar's skies cleared. The rift sealed. The war was over. In the aftermath, the galaxy reeled. The once dismissed humans, those primitive Deathworlders, had saved them all. The Velthari erected a monument, not of conquest, but of sacrifice. It bore names not only of the fallen, but of the species who had refused to die quietly. Earth received no formal reward, no parades. But across the stars, stories were told. Of the humans who answered a cry for help. Of warriors forged by the harshest worlds. Of a species that didn't seek dominance but would never be dominated. Part 6 ends with silence over Velthar's battle-scarred plains and a single line etched into stone. They came when no one else would. And when the monsters arrived, humanity stood.